Okay, thank you so much. Awesome. We'll just give it a few more minutes, a couple more minutes to let everyone, get in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you all are here, I want to thank you all for attending. My name is Jesse Ireland, and I'm a Housing Program Associate with RHS, a subsidiary of CWS, Church World Services. And I want to first thank you all for attending today. And the topic of discussion for this particular webinar is the importance of engaging and building partnerships with landlords and property managers. Okay, but let's start off with a few introductions. I think I'll just go down the list that I see the participants that are here, and if you could just introduce yourself, and that would be great. I'm going to first start with my colleague and my Lynette Pearl. She's here also with me. She is my team lead with RHS. If you would like to start off, Lynette.
Hello, my name is Lynette Pearl, and I'm the Senior Associate of Housing. And again, we welcome all of you to our presentation. And I'm going to try to unmute people. So if I mess up, please be patient with me. So again, thank you for participating in our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Is it Danny Graham? Okay, Lynette, if you can just unmute everyone. I think that you kind of muted them, and I was speaking to Danny Graham specifically.
I think I did. Okay, I'll try again. I apologize.
That's okay.
They should be, Jesse, they can unmute themselves right now.
Hi, Jesse. Hi, it was Danny, so you're right that first time, but I am a case manager with Cash Refugees and Immigration Connection. So I am here kind of to just kind of learn about what we can do to assist with that relationship with that property management. It looks like you're now muted, Jesse, so.
Okay, nice. Thank you for that, Danny. Hannah?
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I just
Hi.
put a mouthful of pistachios in my mouth, so I apologize. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Canopy, Northwest Arkansas. So we are a really quite small resettlement agency located in, NWA, Northwest Arkansas. And we serve under this new sort of wave under our new administration. We went from resettling about 40 people a year to about 250 people a year, which is exciting. But with that, we're really trying to build sustainable housing solutions. So in my role, I will oversee our housing specialist. And so I'm excited about this meeting. Thanks, y'all, for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you for attending. Samuel Massey?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. I'm with Bethany Christian Services in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist.
Nice to meet you, Sam.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, Joe Landis?
Yeah, hello. Well, I'm the housing specialist for Church World Service in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So, yeah, I haven't met you yet, Sam, but hopefully we will meet you.
I hope we can.
Yeah, similar to lots of other folks.
Yeah.
Just hoping to build up more of a system that's sustainable for engaging with property management companies and landlords over time. So yeah, looking forward to learning.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Joe. Kate Poor?
Hi, everyone. I work in the housing department at Hayes, Pennsylvania, here in Philly. And yeah, similar goals to pretty much everyone else on the call. We're undergoing landlord engagement and just trying to learn more.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Kate. Lily Spencer?
Hey everybody, I'm the Immigration Resource Manager at Together and Free. So we work with mainly asylum seeking families or families who were previously separated at the border who are now working to be reunited or recently reunited. Housing has been one of our biggest and toughest issues, I think, figuring out how to navigate that specifically with the population that we work with, and particularly obviously working with landlords. So I'm very excited for this training and thankful for the work you all are doing to help us kind of navigate that space.
Thank you, Lily. I appreciate it. And we do understand the plight that we're in. Yes, it is a housing crisis here, but we're gonna work through it with what we have here today. All right, Mary Wilkinson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Wilkinson. I'm at Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Headquarters in Baltimore. I'm on the matching grant team. So my focus is training and assistance with this economic empowerment program. And like everyone said, I hear over and over again what a critical need housing is. So thank you for this webinar. I'm excited to learn more. I won't be able to stay on camera, but I just wanted to turn my camera on for a minute to say hello, real person.
No problem. We thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. We just needed to see an additional smile besides mine anyway. Thank you so much for attending. Did I miss anyone on here? Did I miss anyone? If I did, feel free to speak up. Okay, awesome. We'll jump right into it and I'll share my screen with you and we'll go from there. All right. We're going to start with, of course, why we're here, the importance of engaging and building partnerships with landlords and property managers. We did the welcome and introductions, and then here's a list of the agenda. You can take a look at it for yourself, which we'll be going through, introducing refugee housing solutions, the benefits for landlords engaging with refugees in the rental process, a couple testimonials, and also finding and retaining landlords, property managers to rent to refugees, opportunities when building ongoing relationships with landlords, property managers, and then we'll close with the Q&A, question and answer session. Okay, jump right into it here. Who we are. With RHS, our objective is to increasing safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for refugee families and newcomers in the United States. Our mission is everyone deserves a safe place to call home. At Refugee Housing Solutions, RHS, we provide tools, resources, training, on-demand, one-on-one technical assistance for refugees and resettlement practitioners, landlords, and property owners to address barriers that refugees and newcomers face when accessing affordable housing. We also coordinate a national housing working group monthly, which includes stakeholders at the federal, state, and local levels to collectively address housing availability and affordability, and to identify temporary housing options for newcomers. Our goals: to first, develop a relationship with landlords interested in renting to refugees, provide technical assistance on housing solutions, collaboratively create innovative housing solutions, and increase, increase our awareness with landlords who are wanting or willing to rent to refugees. All right, how landlords and property managers benefit when renting to refugees. We know that this can be, a task, trying to get landlords to possibly rent to refugees if they haven't rented before. But the objective again is to how can we get landlords to understand the benefits of renting to refugees to make them want to rent more. First, some of the most vetted people in the United States are refugees, and they go through extensive interviewing, fingerprinting, and training by various stakeholders, including USCIS and UNHCR, prior to arriving in the United States. Second, refugees receive their Social Security cards and photo identification soon after their arrival. All have access to government identification issued by the U.S. Customs and Border Protections and USCIS. Third, newcomers receive case management, employment, and financial assistance. So let's just stop there. Just remember that initially, that's not an ongoing thing. It's not for everything, but they receive case management, employment, and financial assistance through the local resettlement office. And all clients have access to these services for a minimum of 30 days and up to 5 years. So there is a cap there. So we just don't want to get anybody, landlords or anyone just kind of confused to think that they're going to have lifelong assistance, financial assistance. So we don't want to use that as a selling point. Fourth, newcomers are typically seeking stability and often long-term tenants. That is another selling point there. Newcomers are typically seeking stability and often long-term tenants. And we know that landlords and property managers often look for long-term tenants, and refugees have proven to do just that, be long-term tenants. Okay. Extended benefits of renting to refugees. Refugees are hardworking community members who are eager to build new lives for their families and contribute to society. They can provide evidence, once again, of legal status, reliable income if employed, and agency support to help resolve any tenant-landlord issues that might arise. So that's another selling point, just to remember that they also have agency support to help them resolve any of the tenant-landlord issues that might arise. Now, I would say that's set apart from any, if there's some language barriers or if there needs an interpreter or what have you, that will come from, from a different place. Local resettlement staff walk families through the rental process, lease overview, housing setup, and orientation, and they provide interpretation and act as a support to landlords and their new tenants. The win-win situation for landlords and refugees include the landlords benefit from lower vacancies and shorter vacancy periods, and the opportunity to make a difference in the refugees' lives. Landlords do benefit when there are lower vacancies and shorter vacancy periods. So that goes back to the point that refugees typically are long-term renters. Refugees can start building a rental history, establish themselves in the US, and have a place to call home. Everyone deserves a place to call home, and refugees are here for stability. They're coming for stability. And also they're coming to just kind of have a life to say that they want a place to call their own. And that's why they are here. Here's a testimonial we have from, Scott Kelly, a Chief Operating Officer at Convex Property Management. And he states that working with refugees has gone very well. The supporting agencies provide for a smooth process that meets all our standard requirements, while the overall program protects the interests of our owners and investors. So again, so if you would like to, sometimes I say use testimonials from other landlords or property managers who can attest to that it has been success to rent to refugees. Another testimonial here from Brooks Baskin. He's the CEO and founder of 2B Living and Property Management. We have now rented to several Afghan refugees as tenants, and without exception have had great positive results. There is a humanitarian altruistic side of it, which is obviously important, but in truth, it is also just good business. So that's even, something else to highlight. It's just good business. And also, again, people are renting to refugees, and it's just up to us to kind of get more landlords to buy in. And these are just a couple of the benefits that we're sharing with you. Now we're going to go into finding and retaining landlords, property managers to rent to refugees. We know this can be a daunting task because, again, there's several means and ways that we can do this. And I'm going to try to help walk you through some of the avenues that can be taken in order to kind of find and retain landlords and property management. First, send out an introduction letter. Sell your program on how partnership can be a benefit to them. Make sure that you use your company letterhead, kind of make it a high-level professional letter, something brief, introduction letter, of course, approved by your leadership, and just sell your program on how a partnership can benefit. Next, highlight that refugees are ready to rent tenants. I think that's a drawing card, and that's something that you can, I guess, use as one of your tools for selling or finding landlords, is just to make sure that they are ready to rent tenants. Next, again, like we said before in previous slides, just share a couple of testimonies of refugees that have been successfully housed due to receiving services from your program. If you have any refugees that have been successfully housed from your particular program, I would ask for you to get a testimonial from them, and maybe take it to the landlords or the property managers and show that we are having success. Next, highlight how a partnership will allow them to be a part of the refugee resettlement process. Maybe that's something they can highlight within their marketing materials, the landlords, and says that we rent to refugees and we welcome refugees and newcomers. And that's also how you can highlight, how they can highlight, or even, attract more refugees to their properties. Next, for you all, case managers or whomever else invested in finding landlords and property managers, contact landlords who offer incentives such as signing bonuses or either something like first month's rent. So when you contact them, just make sure that you are honing to the incentives that they have and signing bonuses, and also maybe it's first or second month's rent free. Who knows? We just hone into, again, to find what types of incentives are being offered. Next, contact property management companies and express your interest in working with them to house refugees. When you contact them, the property management companies, landlords interested in them, make sure that you have a warm contact with them, and then express, if you can, right off the bat, just say what your intentions are and what the interest is for you, for the refugees coming to rent to their properties. Next, set up, if you can, and get it approved, set up an interview with local TV and radio stations to recruit landlord property managers. I know sometimes it says some people don't really listen to the radio, or they might listen to podcasts or what have you. But if you can find someone that you know that they will allow you to do an interview with the local TV or radio stations, I would say by all means go for it and just compel the landlords and property managers that you are heavily looking for them to recruit to refugees and newcomers. Next, you can contact real estate agencies to inquire about their relationships with landlords to obtain leads, and also maybe make the pitch to them saying what you're trying to do and what your intentions are to refugees and newcomers, and inquire about the relationships they have with the landlords and maybe kind of obtain leads from them. Next, also advertise in local and national publications for landlord property managers associations. I'm sure there's tons of them out there. And again, I just don't know. Some of them may have cost and some may not. But what it is that is what you need to do is just possibly just kind of like, do a search who allows you. Maybe I would say start with the free first. And then if you have a budget, that would be great too, that you can advertise in publications. Next, cold call all available properties and apartment finding companies. I know that we all have limited time in our work days, and that, maybe a cold call here, one every 2 hours or something, on a 15, 20-minute downtime, just locating those available properties and just giving a cold call. Back in the day, cold calling is what they really had for their marketing tools. You just pick up the phone, and you remember the days of telemarketers, selling you the vacuums and the carpet and the encyclopedias. Well, same thing here. Cold call available properties to find apartments that are available for the refugees and newcomers. Next, retaining and securing landlords. We would say the first thing to do, incorporate case management efforts that include matching landlords with vetted refugees who are already ready to rent. When I say incorporate case management efforts, that means that whatever your daily scope of duties are, maybe you can, possibly include just a little bit more vetting into your daily work. Well, whatever is proved by your leadership, to kind of but emphasize that they're ready to rent. Again, that's a selling point, is that refugees already come ready to rent. So, and I think that is a major drawing card. Also, build a channel for landlord property managers to stay abreast about their concerns and needs and address them accordingly. Landlord property managers, they often say, well, this is going to be, is this a concern? Answer the questions as best as possible. And if need be, you can always refer to RHS. And we can also offer some of those technical assistance and kind of answer a lot of those hard questions when referring to us, okay? If you are assisting with paying the rent, follow through with the payments and help your client follow the lease terms of the lease. That's one thing that, we often kind of forget, that we have to also, maybe help a few refugees here and there to remember that they need to follow through with the payments and also their lease terms and what can and cannot be done within the ramifications of their lease. Also, maybe you can provide a newsletter for the landlords, property managers, and give them program updates and highlight a landlord property manager in each edition. Within your newsletter, maybe highlight and say, well, this landlord, he rented 7 units to refugees and newcomers within the past year. And, maybe highlight and say, this is what you can do as well as a landlord in order to rent to refugees and newcomers. Next, conduct monthly and or quarterly check-ins with landlords and PMs. Maybe put it on your calendar to check in, even make a follow-up to that cold call that you had, maybe a month prior to, and just kind of conduct a monthly, quarterly check-in. And even with the landlords that are already renting to refugees, and see if they have more available, because it might not be on the top of their head at the moment, but then they're saying, oh, okay, since you've checked in with me, I just remembered that I have 4 or 5 units available. Also provide a centralized resource guide outlining available and newcoming refugees ready to rent. What that means is providing a outline, maybe not something that you would need to share publicly, but or within just your particular domain, about the newcoming refugees that are ready to rent to those landlords that are already renting and maybe have properties available or rental units available. Next, provide recognition to landlords, property managers who participate in the refugee program. So what that means too, again, everyone likes to be recognized for the work that they do and what they've done and provided for for people. And in this case, particularly, it's just refugees. Also, next, create a landlord ambassador program. This helps with recruiting other landlord and property managers. Again, I think that falls back onto, again, highlighting the landlord and property manager in each edition. Maybe just kind of a landlord ambassador program is maybe a high level idea. And, you know, again, that would take them, you know, to make sure that they are included in any of your periodicals or what have you. And then they might show other interest and might maybe talk to other landlords that are also willing to rent. And next, facilitate events for landlord property managers, such as forums or informational events, and provide designated trainings geared towards ongoing recruiting efforts. In today's society, I know we use a lot of Zoom and Teams and whatever other avenue that we do to do social media. But if you can, if you're having some formal events or actually in-house events, maybe, you know, create a little small flyer or plug or something to the landlords and provide them to the landlords and property managers, and just come in with the information of it and make sure in those events that you're highlighting that you have ready to rent refugees who are willing to, you know, be possibly long-term renters. I think that's another drawing card, making sure that you're saying that they're stable long-term renters. Thank you. Okay. So we know here increased housing opportunities equal increased capacity to settle more refugees and newcomers. I'll repeat that again. Increased housing opportunities equals increased capacity to settle more refugee newcomers. That is the task that we are set forth, and that's why we're here, making sure that we can find some increased housing opportunities and finding the capacity to, with landlords and rent and property managers, to rent to refugee newcomers. Okay, future landlord opportunities. What you can do is share your list of available properties and rent to refugees, present and or attend National Housing Working Group, connect with our housing and resettlement practitioners for support in providing affordable quality housing to newcomers. Join our regional housing communities of practice and participate in webinars and trainings on national housing policy and practices. Next, if you need, you know, ongoing information, if you need to, well, I would say I urge you to check out our newsletter. We also have always emerging information, and then there's some contact information on there, updates with policy news and what have you, and how you can get involved. And with that, with our technical assistance, we can also book one-on-one sessions with RHS Housing Support in just a few clicks. So if you all get a chance, take a look today and head to our website and just look at all of the things that we're doing, all of the things that are upcoming, and how we can offer refugee housing solutions. Again, the agenda and the intention is to make sure that we're offering solutions, and that we also are considering that the refugees they're not going to stop coming, they're coming, and we need to find them safe, affordable housing. So when you get a chance, again, go to our refugee housing solutions. I will go back to the first, I think it's first or second tab, which has our, well, actually we can put it in the chat. Lynette, if you could just put our website in the chat where they can find the link, and they can just go straight there to our website, right? And then here's just our references for some of the things that I cited within the PowerPoint. Again, this is if most of us have been in school at some point and they say, well, cite. So this is just the citing. And again, if you can, just go to our website, and we would be glad to share any information that, you know, that you are looking for from us. Okay. I see a few hands in the chat. So thank you for taking the time. Okay, that's Lynette. So we're going to open it up for Q&A. Have any questions, concerns, or anything that we can possibly explore in this particular avenue? So if you can, just go ahead and either just start, you know, ask the questions, and we'll just go from there. Okay, I see a hand up there. You can go ahead.
Hi, Jesse. So can I ask, I know that in working with different LARS sites, it seems that over time, landlords become less and less concerned about refugee clients not having a credit history. But what would you advise when you're trying to get a new landlord or property manager on board? Do you have a handout or resource that you'd recommend for helping them with this concern?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we're creating is a landlord toolkit. And then you can also refer again to our website. We have information that's directly related to what you're asking for. So what they can do is they can either email any one of us, or either absolutely, you can just, if you have your phone or something with you at a particular time, show them, our website, and that would make it maybe a more drawing tool. And I know that some landlords, they stick to the credit worthiness, what have you. But again, that goes back to the point of emphasizing that they are already ready to rent. They've come vetted already. And so if you can, like I said, I think which Lynette put it in the chat, and we can definitely assist them if they have any other further questions or concerns.
Hey, Jesse, I'm going to jump in with that particular question.
Sure, Lynette.
We have there's a documentation we can send to you about the rental application process, because there are screening criteria that these property managers have. And what we do, we explain what the comparable is that a newcomer would have that would meet that criteria. For example, one of the things they ask for is proof of identity. An I-94 card can meet that criteria. Again, with the ability to pay. If you get a promissory note from a resettlement agency stating what they are going to be responsible for, that will meet their criteria to pay. Then also with the background check, it's about educating the property manager about the documentation that the newcomer already has. Like the I-94 card already proves that they've been vented and they don't have a criminal background. So it's part of just educating them and matching up their criteria to the alternative documentation that newcomer has, so they can understand how it will meet their screening process.
Well put, Lynette. That is correct. So Mary, did that help you out a little bit for answering your question?
Yeah, it gave me some good thoughts. And yeah, just as I hear this question pop up, I appreciate that and the resources.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. And if you have further questions, feel free to reach out. Again, we're here to help and do our part as well. Okay, Joe Landis has a question or concern.
Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation so far. And I love to hear things like, refugees have been proven to be long-term tenants. I'd love to be able to say that to landlords and have them believe me. However, a lot of landlords in my area are connected to resettlement agencies previously, or connected to folks who have worked with resettlement agencies. And we all know that in reality, many refugees arrive and their lives experience a lot of change within their first year or two. And so breaking the lease is something that does happen. So I kind of get the sense as I speak with landlords and property managers that we have the burden of proof to show data about long-term tenancy and good home care and the pace of matchmaking, like to show that we have lower vacancy or can provide a lower vacancy rate or shorter vacancy periods. I'm curious if Refugee Housing Solutions is gathering that data on a larger level nationwide, or if other resettlement agencies, housing professionals have worked on gathering that data and sharing it out. Seems like a big task.
Yes, awesome. And I'm gonna let Lynette jump in here because Lynette works closely with a lot of the data. And so Lynette, do you mind jumping in and answering that for me, please?
Sure. Again, we're kind of in our infancy stage with Refugee Housing Solutions, but we do have a team member who is currently allocated to collecting that particular data. So when we have these type of questions or concerns, we can have that hard evidence to prove what we're saying. So again, we're still in we just started our launch in May. So we're just starting collecting this information. However, based on my experience, I've been in property management, I don't want to date my age, You can't see me, but that's okay. For 17 years, in my 17 years, I have found they have been the most reliable tenants. But again, we're still collecting that data when it comes to refugee housing solutions. The one thing that when we're dealing with property managers, the sold is, remember, resettlement. Now it's different if you have a refugee or newcomer who's in that transitional period. If they're in that transitional period, then I will recommend that you put them into a rental agreement versus a lease. But if you know that they're in that resettlement process, they have been resettled, then that's when you can sell the property manager or the landlord. They are settling here. This is where they're going to put roots down versus they're not in that transitional period. Does that make sense?
Could you say a little bit more about that, Lynette, the transitional period versus resettlement period? And then I guess also the rental agreement versus lease. I wasn't actually aware that those are two different things.
Yeah, a rental agreement is more as a short term. Rental agreements are more like 60 to 90 days, like 3 months, but they vary state to state. A lease is more like almost a year to 18 months. So if you know that you have a particular client, this is not where they're going to resettle. They're just in a transitional period until you can find something more permanent, but you have to house them. I recommend putting them into a short-term lease, which is a rental agreement. Most property managers, again, it depends on the property manager and the landlord. They're willing to go into a lease agreement, which is a short-term agreement, if they know that this is not the one-stop place for that newcomer or refugee. Now, if you have a client, you know they're already going to be stabilized, they're going to be there more than a year, then that's when you can tell the property manager, yes, we can go ahead and sign a year lease. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is really helpful to know. I will look on the Refugee Housing Solutions website for information on rental agreements. It would be awesome to have like a template to use for that, because that is something that we struggle with, that awkward period of like a couple weeks to a few months where we know that some people are only going to be able to sign something like that, as opposed to a 6 or 12-month lease.
Yeah, it depends on the property management and the landlord, because some property management companies and landlords do have short-term leases. So that's the thing you need to discuss before you lease up, the expectations of the time period. And usually with the short-term lease, I'm going to be honest with you, the rent is going to be a little bit higher because it is a shorter term. And most times when you have a year lease, the rent should be lower because they know they're going to have a stable tenant there. And again, they have to take into a cost. If it's short term, they got to turn around and have that money to rehab the unit if it's going to be a short term lease. That's the reason why the rent is going to be slightly higher when it's a short term lease, because they know they got to turn around and rehab that unit within 3 to 6 months with the short term. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Awesome.
I have follow-up questions. I don't want to dominate the discussion.
No, this is what we're here for.
Yeah, this is why we're here.
And then on top of that,
yeah. Go ahead, Lynette.
And on top of that, you guys asking these questions, again, we're still building up our resource database because again, we just launched in May. So all these questions you guys are asking us, and we're learning, okay, these are the things, the resources that we need to put on our database to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. So, you know, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely, Joe.
So
go ahead,
yeah,
Joe.
So I think a template for a rental agreement would be really useful, because I find myself needing to educate landlords or would-be landlords often. And property management companies pretty much just put resettlement agencies off to the side, unless it's going to be like an ideal arrangement for them, in my experience. So like a 1-year lease with a very quick matchmaking period and so on. I think it would take a good bit of creativity, and it would be nice to have the resource ready to go to help with that, to like initiate a conversation about, hey, it's going to be more like up to 6 months here, but we would be paying a higher rent than if it were a longer contract, etc. I might have a skewed understanding but I've just never heard a property management company offer something like a rental agreement. It might be because of this market, like the housing market, or a smaller area. Like there's not a lot of subleasing going on in a small city like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with 60,000 people.
Again,
so that's just a thought.
and Joe, again, it's very, again, with you, we can have a generic template for a lease agreement, but it varies state by state. So any lease agreement or lease, you got to make sure it's in compliance with your state. So each state is slightly different when it comes to their leases, FYI.
That makes sense, totally.
Okay, thank you, Joe. You have any other questions?
I do have questions. Yeah, more questions. Do you have tips on how to find landlords who offer incentives? That was an interesting point to me. And I think it might also be something that is harder to find in this housing market. Like, does that mean like landlords who actively are trying to recruit tenants by giving an incentive for signing a lease or giving like a free first month's rent?
Yes, sometimes the incentives are usually not publicized a lot. That's why it takes like a lot of great deal of like cold calling and actually driving by the properties and actually just kind of like, just speaking with the properties and saying, do you have any incentives? And maybe not specifically for just refugees, but incentives, period. And then you sell the selling point that you says, okay, well, I have someone already ready, vetted to go. How can that incentive apply to them? Or do you have any further incentives for helping us? Or, maybe say that refugees, are needing a little bit more. And if you can offer a little bit more. So it's a great deal of just like cold calling and learning about them at the events and, kind of like going into some open houses and what have you. So again, finding incentives is kind of like it's kind of a little difficult, challenging, but it can be done.
Hey, I'm going to tell, like when I used to be a case manager, one of the tips I used to do, I would research, I would go on the website and look at, like I'm looking to lease up for myself. And I will see how many properties they would have available, because some property management companies, you can't do this with smaller landlords, but you can see like they'll let you select the unit if you're trying to lease up. You can kind of get a general idea. Oh, I said, this property management company has a lot of vacancies. Because I'll look at like I'm looking for an apartment. And if I notice they have a lot of vacancies, then I will call and say, hey, I see that you have a lot of vacancies. What are your incentives? Because if a unit's sitting there, they're losing money. So when I used to try to find housing for my clients, I would go to the bigger property management companies like the affordable housing ones and see how many units they had available to lease up. And if I saw that there was a lot of units, I would call either the property manager and say, hey, are you offering any incentives? Because I see you have a lot of units available. And they said, well, we're willing to negotiate with you. And that's when I'll go into my spiel. Well, can you give me this, and this for a client? Does that make sense? So sometimes you have to think outside the box to kind of find out what's going on with the property management companies. I always do my research first to see if they have a lot of vacancies, they'd be more open to provide you an incentive for your client.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've never thought about asking for incentives, but it's inspiring. I want to try it.
Thank you.
My thing is, the worst thing they could say is no.
Yeah. So I want to ask of Samuel Massey, do you mind expanding a little bit on what you put in the chat so we can get a little bit of understanding of your message there?
Sure. Lancaster is very much embedded in Amish and Mennonite hospitality. Mennonite Central Committee had a headquarters here. So receiving refugees has been a very long history post-World War II. And in a small area, it's really a remarkable history of hospitality. The difficulties then is that you always have situations develop where perhaps there's not as much oversight by an agency in terms of working with families, or families that come with very little cultural sensitivity
Mhm.
and do not keep up a place as well. And so you find yourself, at least I have, talking to landlords in person. You can't really even get a hearing from some of the big corporate ones, but ones that are quite as big, and then, basically saying, here's my phone number. Would you please take a risk? And if you have a problem, call me up and I'm accessible to you. And so it's really building relationships with those who are willing to have those relationships built, and building trust, which has been somewhat helpful, but it's still a challenge. You look at affordable housing in our area, and I feel for Joe in this. I'm not the specialist for that area, but I work with people who are trying to find housing, help our agency find housing. You show up, have an open house, and you just got loads of people walking through. You can have 25, 30 people walking through the same house in the course of 30 minutes. And so it's pretty competitive here for a lot of different reasons. And it is a small area, very hospitable, but small. That's basically what I was.
Okay, that's great information. Yeah, again, we are in a housing crisis, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult and challenging. And then, again, the idea is to use your best selling card and use the best information that you can give to them in these particular times. And I know you said when there's 25, 30 people walking through a particular property. And I hate to say it sometimes, but put the biggest bells and whistles balloons that you have on in certain situations, where you're trying to really get people housed. And I think that's what it takes. It takes a go over and beyond approach to make sure that you're doing all that you can do to kind of house the refugees and newcomers, again, because again, the new refugees and newcomers, they're steadily coming and they're needing housing. So we have to be kind of most like innovative, and also do maybe given a little bit of history too on the most positive part of the history of written to refugees. And I know there is some negative parts to it too, but again, we want to stick to what we can to kind of promote it. And Sam, you made a lot of great points that it's limited, but again, we still have it. It's just like we still have to do what we need to do.
Right.
So,
And I would add, I would go back to one point to be a bit redundant. Well, first thing,
Sure.
I'm a clergy person, so I play
Okay.
that card quite a bit.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think you can play the church member card around here because everybody seems to be one.
Okay.
But, part of it is that a lot of times, and this is not to criticize anybody besides our agency,
Sure.
but other agencies is true. The landlords will have a concern. They'll call and nobody will ever call back. They'll leave a message and nobody responds to it. And that happens quite a bit. And I was hired to start returning those phone calls 6 months ago. But it helps these landlords to be able to say, you can call me. My business phone is my personal phone. You can call me and I will be there. I'm here for you. And they never call, but it just kind of nudges them over the edge. And so that's what a lot of agencies around in our part don't do, as far as I can tell, with all due respect to Joe there, that our folks are so busy that a landlord has a concern, he'll call after the third month or whatever it might be beyond the covenant of the agency, and nobody ever replies. And then they'll say to themselves, oh, I'm never rent to a refugee again, generally speaking. And that's, you have to overcome that history. And part of it is to say, I am accessible to you. I may just be able to cry with you, but I am accessible to you.
And again, I don't know the manpower. Again, each organization manpower is slightly different. Because we had those type of concerns too, we wanted to make sure that we took care of our landlords and property managers. If possible, if you could have a 24-hour line, even if someone cannot answer late at night, but a landlord could leave a message, someone would be responsible for that 24-hour response. You need to have a contact person. That person would be the point person for each organization to do the landlord relationships when those issues come up. So again, that's a manpower issue. I don't know how your organization is set up, but in previous organizations, I always made sure I had a staff member who managed that 24-hour line. Our goal was to, again, respecting hours of staff, but making sure that you follow up the next morning with that landlord and property manager.
Right. And I would say in the last 6 months, I have been that responsible party. I don't want to be critical again. These case managers are overworked, underpaid. Everything with these families are a crisis. Their focus aren't empowering these families, these refugee families. I can't criticize them, but I would agree with you that having somebody responsible for engaging in some of these relational things where there's a complaint is awfully important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that wealth of knowledge. Wow. We have one more hand up here. Joe. We have Joe
Yeah,
again.
it's me again. Yeah.
No problem.
But
Go ahead, Joe.
just related to what Sam was mentioning, what you all were talking about for like landlord complaints. I definitely feel that as well, even though I am the housing specialist, and we actually have a housing aide now too within CWS. We're so busy with the search and matching clients to units right now, which feels impossible each time, and we eke it out and are with an eye toward building up sustainability into the future. But we really don't have the capacity to like assist a landlord with an issue that arises 6, 8, 10 months into a lease, because it's often, one, it can't fit into our work schedules, and two, not our area of expertise necessarily. If it's like, you know, about I don't know, a neighbor dispute, something like that. So I'm just curious if you all at Refugee Housing Solutions have considered that piece of like empowering clients and former clients to address their own issues, like their own like recurring problems that do happen in some units based on cultural and housing differences over time and just the learning curve. Something that I've thought about is like matching current client families with families who've been in the area for years and years, that are maybe from a same or similar culture, who can kind of provide mentorship, which seems to be necessary sometimes, but is certainly not something that like a resettlement agency can typically do. And like Lynette says, everyone's manpower is different, but I'm just curious about that.
Yes, awesome question. So this is what I recommend, Joe. If you can, we recommend set up a one-on-one booking with us, and we can address a lot of those things. Even the cultural piece is very important. Matching people with with culturally appropriate, culturally sensitive, to environment. We'll say that. So if you can, and with our technical assistance, we do one-on-one bookings, and it would be really awesome if you could just go on there, and then we can give you that dedicated time to explore each of these important aspects that you're referring to, and we can definitely explore more. And it sounds good. You have a lot of great questions and concerns. And again, we can't fit it all in the 1 hour, because we only have about 5 minutes left. But Joe, that's awesome points that you bring up. So if you can just kind of book us one-on-one with our one-on-one booking for assistance, and we can definitely help and explore with that. Will that work for you?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other questions, concerns, comments? And again, before we all leave you, just make sure that you all kind of go to our website and just see a lot of the different things that we're trying to do. Again, we're just launched here in May. And, you know, we're kind of, like you said, we're in our, Lynette usually says in our infancy stages. And so we're still learning as we go, but we're kind of going at a rate of speed, again, that we're trying to provide as much data information as possible, because again, we're offering housing solutions. And, you know, and that's our role, is to make sure that we try to find affordable housing, and also offer those technical assistance questions that you all may have on concerns. And we'll have a survey coming for you soon for this particular session. And we will actually have more like this. So if you can also, on the website, you can go look at a lot of other webinars and trainings and things that we have coming up. And I think that, you know, we'll be an affordable resource for you going forward. And I want to thank each and one of you, and because we definitely need the feedback. This is definitely important feedback with the questions, and even even what Sam was talking about, a lot of things that we also need to consider from a historical standpoint. And I just want to thank you all again for attending today, and feel free to reach out to us at any particular time. And you all have been great, and it was great to learn about each one of you all and your roles and where you're designated from. And again, we're just one email away or one call away, and you can find our information there on the resource, Refugee Housing Solutions website. So I want to thank you all, and feel free to drop off. And and I want you all to have a wonderful holiday weekend. Get some rest if you can. Eat a lot of good barbecue food, or vegetarian, whatever you do. Just enjoy the weekend and take time to use a little self-care for each one of you too. I offer you the extension to do self-care. Okay. Thank you, and I appreciate the information. You all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.